everybody. This is the Open Research Institute's FPGA meetup. This is the 17th of February, 2026. And what we do at this meeting is we talk about what we have done, what we plan on doing, if we have any roadblocks, anything getting in our way, and if there's anything that Open Research Institute can provide in terms of resources so that you can get your open source digital radio work done.
I have a question for Paul. Um, so what are you programming for the power block? What are you programming the low pass filters?
I have to look it up.
Okay. So my concern if the alphas were too small or if they were zero, then that could cause what we're seeing with the no power readback.
Really? Um,
So there's
no
two low
problem.
pass filters, exponential moving average filters in the power block. And so those filters need the alpha set um, appropriately for the filter to work or for the power detector to work properly.
I think I'm leaving that up to IIO. I'm not doing anything directly to those filters.
Okay. So I mean that maybe it could just be a configuration issue. I'm suggesting. Um, so I'll drop in a Slack as well, but just this is what's in the simulation right now. They're just both being so I put them in the chat window. They're just both being set to 64 in the simulation, which is probably a reasonable initial value.
Are these your registers or
Yeah, these are registers in
okay,
the
misunderstood? Michelle, do you know what we're doing with those registers? That
Which
those are
ones?
these ones that are mentioned in chat, the low pass EMA alpha 1 and alpha 2.
No. Um, no, I don't think I've done anything with it. I don't think I no.
yeah, so that's what I was kind of suspecting. Maybe they're just weren't configured and they're zero, and so then we're not actually computing any power metric, possibly.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've
They
stayed
don't
out
have
of
a default.
power metric stuff. Well, default is probably zero because that's how we kind of
Yeah,
do it when we init everything. It should be set to zero, but I don't do anything with those. I'm I that's not one that I did anything more than to test whether or not you could write to it successfully, and that's it.
yeah, they default to zero.
Okay, well, tell me what you want me to set them to, and I'll set up.
Let's try 64 for both of them.
Okay, I will attempt to do that next time I'm doing testing.
Very good.
What
I
happens if
suspect
there's
that'll give
zero?
us an improvement.
What happens if there's zero? Do they not work? Is it a flat response?
Well, I think so. It's an exponential moving average, so we'd be multiplying by zero,
Oh
right?
dear.
So we wouldn't be accumulating. I need to double check what the exact equation is, but I mean, I would assume just looking at the source code here. Yeah, so the alpha. Um, so yeah, the data sum. Yeah, so we're multiplying the input data by the alpha. So if the alpha is zero, yeah, we're not going to accumulate anything for the average.
Well, that would explain why it's coming up zero, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I kept thinking the readback was problematic, but then it didn't make sense because the readback's working in the simulation, so it makes more sense. It's a configuration issue.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was anything to configure for that, so sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah, so basically there's two exponential moving average filters cascaded in the design, and so that it smooths out and we get a good um, solid average of the input power.
Is that just for the power indicator?
Yes. I
Okay.
think that we had one in the Costas loops before, but determined we don't really need it, so we just have the only place we have the EMAs right now are in the power detector.
Okay. And do we have a definition of what the units are of the output when it does output?
Yeah, I mean it's just I squared plus Q squared. So from the I squared plus Q squared, we know the bit widths. you could compute like a DBFS fairly easily. So in software, you can take the square root of the output value and then do the ratio with the number of bits to get a dB full scale type of value. And then if you know what all the gains are through the signal chain, the analog signal chain, you could compute a dBm value from that too. Well, you could compute the dBm without it, but I mean, if you know what the gains are, then you could, um, do all the processing and then give a good estimate of what the input power is. There is a nice square root estimation that we could do, but I don't think there's a lot of value in it. Software ought to be able to do the square root fairly easily.
If we even need anything more than just a relative indication.
Yeah, this provides a good relative indication of the power.
Cool.
That's something that just gets set from Dialogus. That doesn't need a spin of the firmware, right?
Right.
Okay.
Currently doesn't get set from anywhere, but it'll have to be set from Dialogus. If it works, then it won't require any firmware changes. If it doesn't work, then we'll be back to square one.
Okay. Yeah, we should
Expect it will.
Yeah, I think probably multiplying things by 0 probably will. That'll show it.
I should have thought of this sooner because my experience is if it works in simulation, it should work in the hardware, and if it's not working in the hardware, it's almost always a software configuration issue.
Yeah, those are usually good guidelines. Yeah, another thing we have coming up is we get to be part of B-Sides San Diego. And it's been a long time since I've been to B-Sides San Diego. I've been to B-Sides Los Angeles, B-Sides Little Rock, or one, I think it was actually Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas. But I haven't been to ours in San Diego in a while, and it's at San Diego State University and attracts over 700 people, and a lot of them are amateurs and lots of open source folks, and I'm really looking forward to it. And so we'll be helping organize RF Village, so we get to be village people again. It'll be so we're gonna bring our stuff and also show off things like Meshtastic. We'll bring RF bit bangers and answer questions about how you make signals work. Probably going to be some communication security questions. And I'm looking for more. There's a couple of other folks we're going to support. Maybe turns out that transmitter hunting is very popular. I've gotten a lot of questions about that. So I think we should probably bring some of the tape measure antennas that we have in stock. And if we can possibly set up a real simple transmitter, then maybe we can have, hand out the antennas and maybe get something going there. So fortunately, that's something that we've done before and can be clapped together fairly quick, and it's fun. People get to actually physically do something and track something down. So it's like a game. But I've gotten a lot of questions about that. I got a question about like, well, can you do a satellite demo? And I'm like, not so sure inside of Montezuma Hall and San Diego State University. So maybe, anyway, that's April 4th, and that just one day. So like 10 to 5, with plenty of opportunity to hang out and party at the San Diego State University bowling alley. They have a whole bowling alley there, and that's where the after party is. So plenty of opportunity to come back with some good stories there. I'm not really surprised with the popularity of Meshtastic. I think we saw somebody with a Meshtastic node on their backpack at the Vintage Computer Fair, which was this past weekend. And Paul and I went to that. In fact, you're wearing the T-shirt from 2024 right now. Yeah. It's a good show, and it has, for a computer fair with no radio stuff, there's an awful lot of radio people there because saw at least two people from San Bernardino Microwave Society and lots of amateurs. And the fellow that we met that did a really good talk about using the UNIVAC to program um, the aircraft landing system, radar assisted landing system for carriers. So he talked about like how this is accomplished and with the patch tape from the UNIVAC systems on board. And wow, it was a really good talk. And lots of uh, sea stories, of course. Um, but he turned out to be a ham and did all sorts of satellite radio stuff and really really great to meet a new friend. And he also lives here in San Diego, so hopefully we'll get him over to the lab and um, you know have yet another person to talk about all this stuff about. So it seems to be like the vintage computer fair crowd is eclectic and includes a lot of amateur radio people, a lot of radio people, and a lot of DEF CON people. So there was a number of the DEF CON group that recognized us, and we ran into them. So it was really fun. Growing show too. Just since 2024, which was the last time I went, uh, I think it's more than doubled in size in terms of floor space. Lots of old computers.
Got a few of those lying around. I actually have, I don't know if it's functional or not, but I have an old TI portable, the big sewing machine looking thing that,
Oh, yeah, luggable.
yeah, it was a luggable. I actually have one of those.
Oh,
No
cool.
hard drive, everything's on the big five floppies.
Wow. Yeah, it would
I
fit
didn't
right
know TI
in.
made it.
Yeah. That's right. This is right up your alley. All the vintage computer folks and the portables or portables, you know, 40 pounds
Almost portable.
portable.
It actually needed some wheels on it. They should have put wheels on that case.
Yeah. I
Oh gosh,
know of what you speak. That's neat.
that goes way back. Mm. A few
Yeah.
486s sprawl lying around.
Yeah. What I think the thing that's like I'm a little biased because my first real computer was a VIC 20 and I just kind of adopted
Oh,
the one that my dad bought because I think he had ambitions of doing computer programming and so I pretty much took it over and I got all my 11 and 12-year-old fingerprints all over it. And that really that made a big difference to me. Just dug in, learned how to do it from the little spiral bound, user guide. And Scholastic Book Club at my elementary school had here, type this program in, and then it will do this. Books, like there was a whole section of computer programming books from Scholastic Book Club, and there was a series that was mysteries. So each chapter would have move you further along in this mystery chapter book for kids, and each chapter ended with you typed in a program to get a clue that would help you solve the mystery, like basic substitution ciphers called QWERTY code, because the top row is QWERTY, and then the U and the I and the O and the P were CODE. And then you got a hint there. So QWERTY code was one of them. And it was just so cool. This seemed to me totally normal. And that got me pretty much knowing how to program computers the hard way, just doing all that stuff. But I've spent a lot of time trying to track down these very cheaply produced newsprint paper books. And I've got a few of them, but like not all of them at all were captured. This is essentially like Scholastic Book Club ephemera, from 1981, 1982, 1983. Um, but I've seen now, like, especially recently, just over the past couple of years, a whole revival of the Commodore, like VIC 20
yeah.
and 64, and to a lesser extent, like the 128, which I don't know if it ever really took off. But the VIC 20 was this massive hit of a computer. We had one. I now have two or three of them. They work, but there's like a revival where you can actually get a refurbished like VIC 20 And all
Hmm.
the parts are new except for the processor. You have to go find some new old stock and yoink it in there. Or you can get an emulator. It's all running on a Raspberry Pi and it acts very similar to a VIC-20. So this is, to me, I'm like delighted, right? Because I'm biased. This is my favorite, totally favorite computer. And I'm just like amazed. Like the plastics are new and not yellow and like they all smell a little weird, because they're pushing, pushing 40 years old now. So that was really clear from this past weekend that the it's co- that the sort of revival of nostalgia computing is is coming back. And then when you actually try to sit down and type at a real VIC-20, there's certain keys that are just in the wrong place because the world changed and moved on. Decided to we would remap the keyboard and the control or whatever is going to be in a different place. So you have to kind of like slow down and remind yourself, or go into like a K Pro 2, which was another one of my early computers. And
Hmm.
yeah, well, that's even it's a CPM machine. Uh, yeah, just a delight. It was just neat to see. So I don't know, over the next couple of years, I think a lot of these projects will probably go ahead and come out with these, full up, nice, brand new retro computers. It's remarkable. There's there's some that are not ever going to come back, that are lost. And then there's some like that, like Ada boxes and hacker boxes have done. And I'll show you one of them. I'll be right back.
Paul, I wanted to ask you, have you made any progress on the last week you were talking about the debricking protocols you were trying to get for your some of your SDRs that oh wow.
Yeah, this is a reproduction, and it's much smaller than
Mm,
the real one called the Kenback, a 1-bit computer, and you know, little switchy poos and LEDs, and it did not come with a case, but it's hacker boxes, it's all emulated, it's not, but here
yeah.
you go. These are now coming out in all of these subscription kits. There's pretty routine inclusion of things like this retro computing in all of these embedded and Arduinos and Raspberry Pis and ESP32s out the wazoo, which are all extremely powerful compared to the older computers.
Sure.
So anyway, this is an interesting shape, so the real one is about yay big, and it has a case, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a case for it, because it didn't come with one. But one of these, an original one, was actually at the Vintage Computer Fair 2 years
Hmm.
ago, and that's the first time I'd ever seen it because it predates the whole VIC-20 era. It was before that, and just as a kid banging away on a VIC-20, I didn't know anything about it until fairly recently. So anyway, yeah,
And
Paul
It's
had some stories about the revival of the bricked, I guess the Encyclopedia Brown style, the case of the brick Della Libre SDR. So I'll turn it over to Encyclopedia Paul here.
yeah, great. I loved those stories when I was a kid. Um, we made one breakthrough. Actually, Michelle told me what to do, and I did it, and it worked. This is a pretty
very
common
good.
scenario. Um,
Yeah.
the the problem that I knew I had that didn't have a way around was restoring the environment variables into the LibreSDR. It's got, in addition to the regular Linux environment variables, which are in RAM and they're normal, there's a set of firmware environment variables that are stored
Uh,
in Flash, and they have to be accessed through special mechanisms and so forth. And they can not only contain values, they can also contain little scripts.
mm,
And a lot of the functionality of the many different ways there are to load firmware into the Libre SDR is implemented by those scripts. And the one I was having trouble with had its environment wiped somehow. It became corrupted. And
mm.
one of the updates decided, well, it's corrupted. It's not passing CRC. So I'm just going to wipe it and put in a default environment, which is like 5 lines of important stuff like baud rate. And none of the scripts or anything are in there. So I started, I knew the problem and I knew how to set an environment variable. There's a FW underscore set in for setting a firmware variable. So I started typing them in, and that turned out to be pretty painful because you had to figure, especially when it came to the scripts, because you had to figure out how to which things needed escaping as you typed them in, because some of the characters are special on the command line. So when you type them in, they get mangled. So what Michelle told me is, well, maybe that firmware set end has a mechanism for accepting script input, and sure enough, it does. And I skipped a step in the long saga, which is that if you're stubborn and you're going to type this damn thing in, whether you like it or not, you get about 2/3 of the way through the longer scripts, and then it stops because it won't take that many characters on the command line. So luckily that restriction is lifted when it's running the script. So all I had to do was find a copy of the environment the way it was supposed to be, which actually is a file generated in the build process called uenv.txt, and turn it into the format that setin needs, which is changing the first equal sign into a space, and then just dump the whole thing into firmware setin, and it restores the whole environment. And uh, one thing that it doesn't say anything about, doesn't mention, is that it also sets the checksum when you do it that way. If you type them in one by one, it doesn't set the checksum, so there's still a corrupted firmware environment. But if you apparently, and what the way it behaved is that if I dumped it in with the scripting, then it completely restored it. Yay. So now I've got a LibreSDR that has the right scripts in it, and some of the more normal procedures will work then to load new firmware. So they're
Great.
all, well, 5 of them are working right now. The 6th one is still in a special state because I set it up in the remote lab for Everest to work on his integration of our Pluto MSK into his overall environment, which is Ubuntu based rather than build root based. So nothing is stuck. Everything is unbricked that I can unbrick at the moment. I keep waving my hands here because 3 of them are right in front of me. I've been running them on the desktop here, and over there is one of the Spectrum analyzers. So they're nice and warm. If my hands get cold, I can just put my hands on them.
Yeah, and they're warm
Great.
because they don't monitor their own
Yeah,
temperature,
we
right? You
discovered this. Yeah,
found that when you opened
I forgot
it
to
up.
mention that whole procedure of uh,
Mm,
calibrating frequencies on these Libre SDRs because they seem to be off frequency pretty reliably when you first turn them on. And the Pluto has this problem too. They're all over the place. When you get a new Pluto, it could be high or low or whatever. But these Libre
yeah.
SDRs, they have an interesting characteristic. They're always low, and they're always near way down near the bottom edge of their tolerance band.
Yeah, we
And
saw that when we were trying to talk to it with the software modem
yeah,
because
we
I
saw it
have
on the
to
spectrum analyzer.
tell the software modem where to look. And when we put the Libra SDR transmitting and the software modem is receiving, it's like whoop. And so I was like, wow, that's kind of a lot because Paul's like, oh yeah, it'll be right on, 905.050. And that's what I put in, but that was not where it was. So we could see it like visibly off frequency. And it wasn't just that one. It was all of them that were very
Mm,
consistently off in the
Yeah,
same.
they're about 16 parts per million low, which is a
wow.
lot. That's
Yeah.
terrible. And especially terrible since I was told going into this that these Libre SDRs had many upgrades, including better oscillators. And in fact, they do. The Libre SDR has a voltage controlled, temperature compensated crystal oscillator component in it. Um, and there's a separate little chip in there that gives the processor, or maybe it's the fabric, I don't know, uh, a way to set the voltage going to the voltage controlled TCXO. And you'd think that it would then be temperature compensated. That there's one, this board is really pretty crowded, and it's very nicely laid out, obviously based on something that was done by real professionals. And there's one part that's not included. And what do you
Mm.
get? What do you think that part is? It's the temperature sensor. And it's also the voltage rail monitor. It's an 8 input A to D converter, which actually has 9 inputs because there's one internal input that goes to the internal temperature sensor. So I'm thinking they couldn't get this part or it was too expensive and they just left it off. And the temperature compensation is doing its best to compensate for the temperature that's railed all the way to one side because the temperature sensor is missing. And so probably 16 parts per million is the range that it can compensate for, plus and minus, and it's nailed at one side. So maybe I can add that device to the board and it would just start working. Or maybe I just won't have temperature compensation and it'll be uh, another crappy SDR with a crappy
That's unbelievable. So it's
oscillator.
not just like a simple thermistor or something.
No, I could give you the part number if you care. It's a
That's fine.
like eight input A to D converter with temperature sensor from
I
some
see.
real like TI or somebody like that, somebody you've heard of. And it's a little tiny, I don't know the name of that package actually. It could be hand soldered with a little patience and a microscope. Um, if I had the parts. The parts are available. I can buy them from DigiKey anytime I want. They're like $12 each, which
No,
would
that's
be a
not bad.
substantial amount of substantial fraction of the bill of materials price for the Libre SDR if they had to buy them at DigiKey prices.
No, that's probably why, is that maybe the part ended up being uncomfortably expensive with a long lead time at that particular time. So that just, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means you're responsible for knowing where it's going to put the signal.
Yeah.
Wow.
This-
Hmm.
well, I need to run a temperature cycle on these things and see if it's also temperature compensated. If it's temperature compensated internally and it's just the voltage control part that's missing, I'm okay with that. We can compensate for that in software. But if it really needs the closed loop temperature control, then might try to put in that chip or
Okay.
might not.
Well, we have more than one, so we can afford to experiment with one of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Between the
but
ones
yeah,
that we bought
that was a
personally and the ones in the lab, we have six.
right.
So
Yeah. So yeah, that's anyway, that was a good spot on your part.
Yeah.
It was
Wow.
noticing that it was not just because it's one thing to have them all kind of off, and they're all like, you know, but they all were really consistently off in the same way. So it drew some attention. Paul sat down with the schematic and went through it and then compared the board, so it's kind of a complicated looking board. And then, look, this one's not
Sure.
populated. And that, I think his assessment's right on. And, but yeah, so like we could talk about the difference between accuracy and precision. And then, a known offset is we can deal with that, but he's right. Like going through a temperature cycle to make sure that like is it always over here? And if it is, then we just compensate. We just add that in, you know, and then there you go. We've got it somewhat fixed.
well, actually, it's already somewhat fixed at lat room temperature because they implemented the same calibration procedure that the Pluto did. The Pluto has a way for you to type in, it's one of those firmware environment variables, in fact, type in what the frequency of the local oscillator reference actually is. On the Pluto, it's supposed to be 40 megahertz.
Hmm.
So if it's on frequency, you just type in 40 0 0 0 0 0 0 and it doesn't do any compensation. On the Libre SDR, it's not, maybe it's 40 megahertz. It's kind of hard to tell. There is a 40 megahertz oscillator in there. Um, on the Pluto, if you don't read the documentation very carefully and ignore some of the documentation that's wrong, you might be under the impression that this frequency compensation is only for an external reference oscillator, which you have to turn on with another one of those firmware environment variables. Um, the Pluto doesn't have a connector on the exterior of the box for an external reference oscillator, but it does have circuitry for one inside. The connector was not even populated on the first generation Plutos, but on the modern ones you buy today, there's actually one of those little horrible little snap-on RF connectors for the reference oscillator, and you can bring it out through the plastic case if you want to. And I've done that on two of two of the Plutos. So you can control them that way. But it turns out that frequency compensation value works for the internal oscillator as well. So they must have left that part of the code untouched. Or maybe they may had to do something extra to make it work with the circuitry they ended up with. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's basically worked by accident because they left it untouched. And you type in something near 40 megahertz and you get a compensation. Um, so I went through, that's the reason the spectrum analyzer is on a desk here, because I was calibrating all the Libre SDRs by measuring where they're actually transmitting and then computing what the compensation would have to be for against 40 megahertz and then typing that into the firmware environment variable. So at room temperature, these guys are all within 10 or 20 hertz of on frequency for now. So we'll see what happens over time in temperature. Maybe.
Wow, that's interesting.
The one other little tidbit that's interesting about that exercise is that this spectrum analyzer is the one that was going to the other lab, the ORI South lab, and we didn't get it quite as specced up as the one we have in the remote lab for here, the remote lab West. This one doesn't have the oscillator upgrade in particular, so it has like a half a ppm uh, oscillator in it, maybe. But it does have an input for an external reference. And over there, behind the laptop, is my Flex Radio 6600M, which has a GPSDO in it, which has an output, a 10 megahertz output, which is like 10 to the minus 13th or something like that. And so I ran a little cable. I think it's this one, this cable here. It has 10 megahertz in it. It runs over to the spectrum analyzer and gives an external reference with high precision. So I'm pretty confident that these, when I say these are on frequency, they're on the actual honest to God frequency. I can do the same thing in the remote lab. Of course, there's a GPS receiver in there with a dedicated GPS DO, with a display and everything. It was a project that Tapper put together years ago. They had a bulk buy of these GPS receivers and they made a little circuit board with a display and everything. And I got an actual outdoor antenna on that one. This one, all right, I got to show you this. See if I can get my external camera thing to work. Yeah, you should now be seeing the world through my iPhone. There you all are.
Wow.
Okay. So that, no, that's my GPS antenna. It's on a mic stand clamped to the wire rack. It has some of that. The reason it's up like that is if you put it down on the wire rack, but next to those bins, it doesn't work for crap because the bins are enough to interfere with the GPS reception.
Wow.
Looking at metal flashing and a tile roof, which is practically a Faraday cage, but it works fine just for having been moved a foot off that shelf.
So okay, so the 10 megahertz is just for your spectrum analyzer, not to lock in the SDR, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah.
The Plutos that have the why are you not seeing me? Because I'm video's still muted. The Plutos that do have the connector brought out could be run from this because they will take 10 megahertz in.
Oh, they will. Oh,
I think they will.
I've always wondered about that.
It doesn't have to be
I've got
40.
one of the original Plutos with nothing coming out of it, so I'd have to go into it and put in a connector or something because that is a pretty awful oscillator they had in the Pluto.
There's also there's a part that's pin compatible you can just drop in that's a better oscillator. I don't know the part number, but you could probably Google it up. Somebody figured out how to modify the Pluto.
I thought I've looked for that and it was either discontinued or something, at least the one that I was looking at, because I was trying to do that. And there was somebody out it was right in the middle of the COVID thing. So there was a guy in Germany where you couldn't mail anything anywhere to Europe or whatever. And he was actually setting a little board that could plug in there. And we could never figure out how he could get it from Germany to here. And then he just quit providing them. And so I just got left out of it. But, yeah, the drift is pretty bad on the original Pluto. It's
Yeah, you can watch it
Yeah.
wander around. It's really terrible. It's
Yeah.
good, fine for lab experiments, but if you're trying to make a radio out of it, it's not that great. I
I
think the
don't know
Libres
why
are
they.
definitely more stable.
Oh, yeah, I mean most newer SDRs have much better uh, DCXO, but oh well. Can't afford a new. I can't afford a new Pluto anyway. So well, I'm glad you got that fixed then. That's great. Good progress.
Yeah, me too. It was a it was hanging fire for a couple of weeks there and getting in the way. So having more Libre SDRs helped with that. Like I was able to be a little more bold about making changes to the one that was wedged.
It's
Nothing
true.
worse than
When you
breaking
only
your
have one
last
thing,
spare.
yeah, you treat it with you baby it to death. No, it's worked
Yeah.
out. I think the
I've,
next week will be good.
Cool.
I've worked out a system now since I have so many of these Libre SDRs. Each one has the IP addresses for the ports and who owns it. And I keep uh, attenuators on the transmit ports in case it transmits without being hooked up to something. They'll survive. These are not supposed to be transmitted into when they're open.
Hmm.
And I've got the calibration factor on a little label on the back.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
if that gets lost, I can take it off the label and type it back in. Ask
Wow.
me how I know that that could happen.
Wow, that's really organized. Wow. Okay.
I
When you
can't
have a
imagine
label
how
maker, everything seems like it needs to be labeled.
how can you keep up with all this? I can't understand. Oh wow.
You're
So
assuming
cool.
that I'm keeping up with it. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Just being generous.
Wow.
That is amazing. Wow. Mm.
Awesome.
I still haven't done anything with this one though. This one needs some attention. This is another one of those Pluto clones. This one turns out to be
Mm.
a 7010, so it's not of any interest to us for current operations, but could use it for Maya or something like that.
Oh yeah. Is that the fishbone, fishbowl, fish sauce?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
the fish soup, fish, well, I don't know, fish something. It's also,
Fish sauce. There we go.
no, this one doesn't have anything. Thought it had some naming on the back, but the back's completely anonymous.
Huh. That looks like the fish bone, fish scale. I'm just gonna make up a bunch of names for it.
That was the supplier.
It's the
It's
yeah,
the
it's like
name of
the
the
name
product, I
of
think.
the project and
Oh, I see. Okay.
cool. Yeah, that was the one that Everest likes. He's enthusiastic. He likes the one that has the 7020 on it because they
Yeah.
do have one with the 7020, but he seemed to think it was easy to work with, and it's one of the ones in Suzuka that he orders around. Yeah.
Hmm.
This is much more compact. If you compare this to a Libre SDR, you can see that it's quite a bit smaller.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Hmm.
Like if you order it with a case, you get this 3D printed case.
It looks like it clamshells open. It hinges open.
I put wires in instead of the screws because the screws were trying to bite into the plastic and they weren't doing a very good job.
Oh,
Hmm.
So I wired it up with hookup wire.
okay. Cool.
This
That's
wire is actually pulled out of 50 pair cable that came out of the ground on my college campus when I was in college. So we still haven't used it all up. We get
Wow.
got like 50 feet of 50 pair. This is a lifetime
Wow.
supply of hookup wire. And it's just exactly the right kind of
Absolutely.
stuff to go into one of those wireless breadboards.
so
Number
you're
22
saying
still
that
Oh,
works.
okay.
we should advise college students to go dig up 50 pair.
Well, it
If
might
it's
not be the
still
best
there.
strategy. This is the same college experience where my roommate got busted by the cops for stealing stuff from the phone company. So
Okay.
um,
Ooh.
he got in with some bad dudes, and they broke into the compound and broke into a service truck and stole a bunch of butt sets and uh, clip-on adapters and stuff. And it didn't take them long to catch them. I think they were waiting for him at the time.
Wow.
Very embarrassing
Oh dear.
for all involved. I'm
Well, you
sure.
know, some people only learn things the hard way. Wow.
Luckily, I wasn't involved, although he did have some of the booty in the dorm room. He was a suite mate, not a roommate. So he was
Oh, okay.
the other side of a wall from me. So the cops
So
didn't
like,
talk to me at all.
did some of your stuff end up warm because it was next to stuff that was hot?
Not that I'm aware of. You know, it'd be hard to tell sometimes.
Never a dull moment.
Oh my goodness. Being nefarious with the phone company. I had kind of a little of an experience, some nefarious activity with the phone company, and that is this is in high school when our high school brought in uh, time sharing computers. They remember those, and so I was at the time sort of the sort of the graduated from Boy Scouts to the Explorers, and the
Yeah.
local meeting was being held in a very in a local AT&T building that had back the switching and all that for the local area, and so it had just a keypad to enter the building, so we knew that to get in the building, and they happened to have a one of those old clunky, what is it, Model 33 teletypes that used to communicate over the phone line so you could access the time sharing computer. And so a couple of us adventurous people that were trying to log into the timeshare after school hours would just go into the phone building and go into the room with the Model 33 and then just log on to the timesharing computer. Of course, the school then started getting extra charges for the extra time that was being used on the timesharing computer, and we sort of got semi caught for that. We were just kind of given a strict warning to just okay,
How
are
were
you?
you
They
supposed to
didn't
know
know
it
where
was
we were
illegal?
coming from. Yeah, they didn't know where we were accessing the Model 33 typewriter. So they just thought, is that like a business office or something? Then back then they couldn't actually track the actual phone. It was even though it was on the actual phone building. So we just kind of dropped it and got away with it for a couple of months of getting extra time on the I think it was a GE something or another computer that was being used for the time sharing at the time. But anyway, that goes way back. Um,
Yeah. You'd
that
think you'd
reminded
be
me
able
of.
to find these Model 33s lying around at vintage computer festivals, but they're very hard to find now because they're big and heavy and dirty and they smell bad.
Yeah,
And if you operate them, they're loud. So most of them have
that's.
been scrapped long ago,
Oh yeah, yeah. I
even
remember
by
they
people who
had the.
wanted to keep them.
Well, yeah, yeah. I remember they had an what is it, an automatic? It was like a little tabbed cylinder that would run that would give the name of the typewriter. And so I
Yeah,
remember
the
that we had to
WRU responder, or something like that.
yeah, we had to dig into the teletype and pull that out before we would log on to the timeshare, so we could be identified. Just pull the little cylinder out, and then we got through, put it back in, and
In the
close
days
it all
before
up, and
caller ID, you were anonymous.
yeah. So that was uh yeah. Anyway, your story about breaking into the TNT, I mean the phone truck kind of brought those memories back.
I was on the lookout for terminals at the Vintage Computer Fair. Um, Pickings were very slim.
Hmm,
Uh, there's an Heathkit H19, which is a video display terminal of the
yeah,
dumb variety, um, for $300. It was in pretty good shape, but that's kind of the going price for a usable terminal these days. And
the
the only other
CRT
terminal I
wasn't burnt
saw,
in.
say again?
The CRT wasn't burnt in.
No, it wasn't bad. Um, didn't have any noticeable burn in, and the keys weren't filthy or worn out or anything. Case wasn't banged up. Of course, one of the rules at the consignment table or consignment room for the spare is that you're not allowed to plug anything in and turn it on. So whether it worked or not, I can only say that it said it worked on a little piece of paper.
Yeah.
The only other terminal I saw there, which actually caught my eye and had me tempted for a few seconds, was um, a Diablo printer from Xerox, which is like an enormous typewriter, daisy wheel and keyboard kind of terminal. And those are legit terminals for like CPM.
I had
Period
one
appropriate.
of those daisy wheel printers as well as an 820 CPM, 822 CPM machine.
Oh, there you go.
My first computer.
I skipped over the whole CPM era. I went straight from Commodores to IBM clones, but I've been filling in with my retro hobby. So I've got some CPM computers now, ranging from about this big on a credit card sized uh, circuit board up to legitimate old luggables. Like I have a Zorba that somebody dug up for me, which was one of the last new CPM models to come out. A little bit too late to be a valuable CPM model, already competing with IBM PCs at that time. And so they went out of business, and most of their inventory, a few thousand units, got surplused out for half price. And most of the ones that are floating around the used market are from that batch, I think. And they're basically new old stock. They've hardly been used at all, because even somebody who bought one, brought it into their office, it didn't take them long to figure out that what they should get is an IBM PC and put this one away.
Any old Insights and Altairs showing up at any of these shows?
A few old ones and lots of replicas.
Oh, replicas, yeah.
Some full-size replicas, and there's a pretty good category of like half-size replicas like that Zenbeck that Michelle showed, that are just an emulator inside a appropriate looking shell with, it's got to have all those switches and LEDs on it.
Yeah,
I've
you
got a
have
couple of those.
a PyDP, which is a PDP. It's real close to you right now. And there was a number of those, along with like actual PDPs sitting there. Probably the neatest one at the Vintage Computer Fair was uh like I don't know if it was a PDP, pure PDP or a clone or a similar one that was actually playing chess against you with a physical chessboard, sensors, and then it would play chess with you. And that was one of the interesting exhibits in there, but you have one that has like a little miniature one with a case. You should show. You should show.
I'm trying to activate my phone again, but apparently it's once per session.
You'll have to go bring it over like a plebe.
Well, but then it wouldn't be plugged in.
Oh,
They're running
okay.
over there, blinking their LEDs.
Yeah, it's like going to Harbor Freight. The old joke was the tools you get at least one use out of the tool from Harbor Freight. It's kind of
Yeah.
unfair. You should get several, but that's all you
Yeah.
get. One use of your switching the camera to the. But yeah, you
Oh
should be able to
my.
share it here, no problem. Oh
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
there's two of them. I forget. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I was thinking of the PDP 8, the Pi PDP or whatever.
Yeah,
So
the one on the left that is the Pi DP8. It's a Raspberry Pi with a half size or so PDP-8 front panel. The other one is a similar arrangement that's emulating an Altair 8800, I think.
complete with font, So those are pretty popular. There was some Altair components, like some actual
Right. Okay.
ones that were there, but there at least as many of the little replica kits that you can get.
This one wasn't plugged in anyway, so this is the Altair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So not as big and heavy as the one that used to
The
use.
kit runs on USB power.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Actually, that's for programming. The power
A-
goes into this little coaxial.
Ahead of its time.
Yeah,
Yeah, not bad.
got that
Neat.
satisfying click of. Some of these are like spring-loaded momentary toggles, just like
Oh
the
boy.
real thing.
Just
Yeah,
like the real thing. Amazing.
it is. Like
Yeah.
like Paul taught me this. It's never too late to have a happy childhood. So you can get this stuff, that you either missed or want back. You can have it. It's
Let me show you
Get that old nostalgia back.
one other piece of treasure here. dusted. It's genuine dust.
Oh, S100. Oh my gosh.
It's not though.
Oh, it's not
Uh,
S100. Oh,
this is
okay.
um, an RC 2014, which is named after the contest that it was created for. It was a build something for us and show us what you can do in 2014. And he built a predecessor to this. The back
Okay.
panel, I'll show you one of the cards. It's just
Ooh,
pin headers.
pins. Ah, wow. Okay.
So instead of a real slot, it has just
Yeah.
a bunch of female pin headers on it.
Okay.
Why he did it that way, I could not explain. But they're relatively cheap and they have a lot less insertion force to worry about. So this is a complete set. There's a Z80 board, and
Mm.
this was the compact flash board for just they put you way up into the high end of CPM. So you've got a little hard disk there. Serial port board. This is I/O. You can light up these LEDs one by one. Um, you can also there's also pins you can read on that board. And then on the end is the cheater for a terminal emulator. This is what I use
Raspberry.
for the serial port. It's a Raspberry Pi Zero. Um, so you log on to this and then terminal to the serial port, which runs on the bus. This is a lot of fun put together. And I made the little wooden base.
Oh, okay.
It's one of my 6 things on Thingiverse, by the way.
Very
The,
good.
did you hear that Thingiverse has
Oh,
been bought up? That's the big news with Thingiverse. They belong to a separate company that also makes upload your design site and will make little miniatures for you on their 3D printers.
so I guess we'll be looking at Arduinos in 10 years and reminisce
Quite possibly, you know.
now
We'll
that
reminisce
Qualcomm
about that
has this.
time in late 2025 when Qualcomm ruined everything by buying up Arduino.
Yeah, that's it's unbelievable that well, I guess somebody wanted to cash in on it and can't blame them.
Something.
Maybe,
We
or maybe they
I
just bought the hype.
I guess I did. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm I don't I don't know. As an
Well,
ex,
I've heard
I used to work at Qualcomm, and I'm like, so,
why.
yeah, why does this? Who? Yeah, I haven't figured it out yet. I'm sure somebody had a good business case for this, or I'm a little baffled.
It's not
And
the first time they've tried to put a foot in the pond with the open source maker people, but it
yeah,
failed the first time. I don't know why they thought it would work any better this time.
I don't know. I guess we'll see. But
Well, I've heard horror stories of people maybe pulling out their libraries out of
yeah,
Axis and so forth because they're afraid that something about the rights that were being written out of open source and now being said, oh, well, it's really actually proprietary or something, and people just trying to pull libraries and things out of the repositories. But anyway,
yeah,
Well,
kind of sad.
if they had a generous open source license in the first place, there's nothing they can do legally. And if they didn't, then they're not really part of they had no standing to rebel against the commercialization. So
Hmm.
but fear has a hysteresis curve. So, you can destroy an awful lot of goodwill by scaring people or by doing something unexpected or not immediately, like not reassuring people right off the bat. And so far, what we what we can tell, like there's a hack fest coming up at UCSD called Data Hacks, and one of the platforms that they are kind of like inviting the students and participants to use is this Qualcomm, Arduino,
sponsored by Qualcomm.
because it's sponsored by Qualcomm, and and the experience so far from previous little hack fests that and other events, similar events, has been that most of the participants spent a lot of time trying to get it up and running, that it was very difficult to get up and running, that it was kind of a hog, that they didn't actually get to the hacking part. And sort of that
Mm.
goes against the grain of Arduino, which was easy to get up and
Yeah.
running, to be able to get
Yeah.
to cool things to do with it quickly. And this is not that. So I haven't fixed it yet, and that's a bad way to start out. So that's the feedback that I got from the organizers of data hacks, is that they know that
Ah,
issue, and that and
They had
Paul,
to
you
go out
have
of their
this,
way to
right?
make it bad.
You've got this Qualcomm Arduino.
I bought
I think
one.
you,
Yeah, I bought two,
yeah,
in fact, because I always buy two of these things so I can have them talk to each other or whatever.
yeah. As I think you mentioned it a week or so back, that this was your experience as well, that it was not really
mm.
pleasant. Like, you can't save. That was the first weird thing, is you can't save your script. You know,
What?
no way to save it. No save as, no save. And that was the first thing that you hit. You were like,
Yeah, it's pretty obvious they rushed it out to meet that trade show deadline. Um, the board is fine. There's nothing horrible about the board, except it's kind of a dumb idea. Um,
I think that's a
uh,
problem.
the reason user experience is so bad is that the software they provide is terrible. They work with the old Arduino software. If you want to work with that, you can, but that's not what they push you toward. They're pushing you toward this their new Arduino Lab, which has a lot of support for the fancy stuff. See you, Matthew. Um, they've got stuff that's for AI in the main Linux side of the processor, and then the Arduino is sort of tacked onto that. And they call it an Arduino because they could get the name, but it's not really an Arduino with an AI coprocessor. It's a Linux machine with AI stuff in it. And oh yes, there's an Arduino tacked on the side. There are lots of people who've been making stuff like that for a long time. And yeah, in fact, I've got one right over, right over there. Um, it's a little PC with a Arduino that's built into it. And the appropriate reaction is so what? But this half-baked Arduino lab thing that they provide is where half the delay comes from. So it takes like 25 seconds to boot Linux on this machine.
Gee.
And then you're able to start booting the Arduino Lab, which takes another 25 seconds. The power on experience is pretty poor.
Mm.
They do say right up front that they recommend the larger memory version if you're going to run standalone. In other words, running Linux on the device. And that would be perfectly fine, except that they weren't delivering, and I don't think they still are delivering the one with more memory. The ones that came out first was the one with less memory. And it's really underpowered for running Linux.
Kind of a
Well, I guess
disappointment.
raspberries are next.
Oh, I hope not, but yeah. I
Raspberries
mean,
were
it's
raspberries were born subverted, right? They're
Yeah, kind
they're
of.
Broadcom, right?
that's
It
true.
Yeah,
doesn't say Broadcom on the outside, and the Raspberry Pi has a foundation and a company and stuff, but really it's a Broadcom development board, and
true.
that's fine. They've done a good job of hiding it, and they've done a really good job of providing usable configurations. Of course, right now they're hurting because they got to charge extra for the memory because they use relatively
Mm.
modern memory that's
Oh,
hooked up by the AI guys.
oh, memory is ridiculous. I mean, have you priced SSDs lately? My gosh. Ugh.
Not very late, not very lately.
Well, I have to because I wanted to replace the SSD cards on a laptop there. I wanted to upgrade to SSDs that have the built-in buffer rather than using the computer memory for buffering. And I was able to get a pretty good deal on a WD Black 850 or something about last August for like oh no, it was only like about $160 or something. And now the same SSD is running for over 300,
Wow.
close to four. And this is one with a nice heat sink and everything for the SSD. But anyway,
Yeah, we live in interesting times, that's for sure.
We got a
great.
bunch of those NVMe SSDs as part of the remote lab. We probably, we're writing them down for tax purposes, but they're actually getting more valuable because the price of memory is going up.
The
Truly.
weird weird thing that I never anticipated. All right, I'm gonna have to get going.
Yep.
Okie dokie.
And
Okay, till next time then.
yeah, no, this is exciting.
Fantastic, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think we're gonna have a good week and hopefully tons to report next week. And yeah, wow. Wow. It's just a great
I kind of like to hear more about the your friend out at the high desert with the Artemis stuff. Really interested in that.
Okay,
Really
yeah,
like to see more about that.
sure thing. No, we got a lot written up between us, so maybe I'll just put it in the newsletter, which still needs to go out. I keep adding to it, and gotta get it off my desk, and then start all over again for the next issue. So yeah,
Great.
I'll include the link budget and the photos and the Odyssey because it's a very compelling and good stuff. And she's had a lot of success with the contesting over the past year and just contacts for like roving operations and things like that. So it's coming right along. So yeah, I'll definitely fill that in a bit more.
Great.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to sign off here and get some food
Bye-bye.
and do all my chores. So yeah, see you
Definitely.
soon.